Arch Linux is one of the great urban legends of our world, like the absolute security of Linux against everything and everyone, like the supposed stability of certain applications, like the supreme superiority of certain programming languages. Narratives so widespread, so repeated, that they have stopped describing reality and started replacing it. Arch Linux, in the world of free software, works exactly the same way. It became the symbol of Unix purity, of total control, of simplicity. Those who use it say so with pride. Those who don't use it respect it from a distance. It is the distro that defined what it means to do Linux seriously. But if you look closely, the narrative does not hold. Because the distro of simplicity uses systemd, which has nothing simple about it. Because those who seek control end up doing full-time maintenance. Because derivatives are growing faster than the parent distro. In this video, we dismantle the legend. Not to attack those who use Arch, but to understand how a collective narrative can replace reality, even in a technical world like ours. We take apart the illusion of Arch piece by piece. We compare it with those who actually respect its philosophy, Artix and Void, and we understand why Arch, today, has become exactly what it promised not to be. Let's start from the foundations. Arch Linux has an official document called the Arch Way, and it defines 5 principles: simplicity, modernity, pragmatism, user centrality, versatility. The first one, simplicity, is the most important. The Arch Wiki puts it literally: simplicity means without unnecessary additions, modifications, or complications. A minimal system where every component does one thing only, where nothing is hidden from the user, where configuration is transparent and local. This is the promise. This is why Arch became iconic. Those who install it don't want a system that decides for them. They want a system that exposes every gear, every configuration file, every process. And this is where the problem begins. In 2012, Arch Linux made a move that changed everything. It replaced its traditional init system with systemd. The official motivation talked about modernity, hardware compatibility, more efficient service management. But let's stop for a second. What is systemd really? Systemd is not an init system. It is an ecosystem. It manages services, sure, but it also manages login, system logs, networking, DNS resolution, timers, containers, clock synchronization, devices, user sessions, even the bootloader through systemd boot. It is a monolithic blob that has swallowed dozens of functions that were previously handled by separate and interchangeable components. An init system, in the Unix philosophy, should be PI1 and nothing more. It should start processes, stop them, and handle orphans. That's it. Systemd does this and another 200 things. Now let's go back to Arch. Principle number 1 is simplicity, defined as without unnecessary complications. How can a distro founded on this principle adopt a component that violates every single rule of the Unix philosophy? The official Arch answer is that systemd works well, is maintained, is standard. But this is a pragmatic argument, not a philosophical one. And pragmatism, in the hierarchy of the Arch Way, comes after simplicity. Yet in this decision, the order was reversed. But there is another reading, far more interesting. We often think Linux distributions are sovereign, free to decide their own destiny. In reality, that's almost never the case. Distributions rarely create the kernel. They rarely write the major desktop environments. They rarely fund at scale the graphics drivers, the audio stacks, the firmware, or the enterprise infrastructure. Much more often, they take software developed elsewhere, assemble it, package it, and try to keep it working. The real strategic choices happen upstream. They happen where the core code is written, where the maintainers sit, where the full-time developers get paid, where the roadmaps of the major projects are decided. And there you find huge names: Red Hat, Intel, Microsoft, AMD, Google. When the ecosystem started moving towards systemd, many distributions didn't really choose between systemd and the alternatives. They chose whether to stay compatible with the main flow of Linux or isolate themselves and fight against the current. Arch, like many others, understood that the cost of isolation would be enormous. In the Linux world, everyone votes, but some vote with thousands of salaries. This is the first betrayal. Arch chose convenience over coherence. It chose the industry standard over the Unix philosophy, and it did so without openly admitting it. Let's move to the second great Arch myth, the Arch User Repository, AUR. AUR is sold as the definitive solution to the package problem. Whatever software exists in the world, they say, you find it on AUR. And technically it's true. Today the AUR hosts over 111,000 packages, more than 10 times the size of the official repositories. It is, by numbers, one of the largest software collections in the entire Linux ecosystem. But let's look at what that number really contains. AUR is not a repository of packages. It is a repository of build scripts, the famous PKG builds. When you install something from AUR, you don't download a verified binary signed by a maintainer team. You download a bash script that fetches source code from an arbitrary location, compiles it on your machine, and installs it with root privileges. The maintainer is, in most cases, a regular user. There is no official review process. There is no automated scanning. There is no quality guarantee. The Arch team itself states it explicitly. AUR packages are user-produced content. Any use of the provided files is at your own risk. This is not a marginal warning. This is the entire trust model, and it has a well-documented history of failure. Let's look at what really happened with names, dates, and consequences. July 2018. A user with the pseudonymZactor takes over an orphaned package called acroread, abandoned by its original maintainer. He inserts malicious code that downloads a script from a pastebin-style site, which in turn downloads a second payload designed to establish persistence on the system. 2 more packages from the same user are found infected. The Arch team removes everything within hours, but it is the first major demonstration that AUR has a structural problem. Anyone can adopt an abandoned package and inject anything into it. Fast forward to July 16, 2025. A user named Danik Papas uploads 3 packages: LibreWolf Fix Bin, Firefox Patch Bin, and Zen Browser Patched Bin. The names are crafted to look like legitimate browser fixes. Inside the PK build, there is a source entry called patches, pointing to a GitHub repository under the attacker's control. During the build, that repository is cloned and its code executed. The payload is Chaos Rat, a remote access Trojan that gives an external attacker full control of the machine. File exfiltration, command execution, reverse shell, persistence. Everything. The packages stay online for about 46 hours before being removed. In the meantime, a dormant Reddit account, presumably compromised, starts promoting them in Arch-related threads to drive installations. The malware leaves a fingerprint, an executable called systemd initd in the temp directory, almost a sarcastic signature. 10 days later, July 31, 2025. Same script, different package. A re-uploaded Google Chrome stable contains a Python one-liner that downloads and executes a remote script. Same modus operandi, same response from the Arch team, removal within hours, but not before some users have already installed it. And this is just the recent visible tip. Between 2018 and 2025, there are multiple documented episodes, plus an undefined number of suspicious packages quietly removed without public reports. As of summer 2025, AUR is also under sustained DDoS attacks that make the repository intermittently unreachable, further weakening community oversight. Now, the standard response from the Arch community is, you should read every PKG build before installing it. It is written in the wiki. It is repeated in every forum. It is the official defense of the trust model. But let's be honest about what reading a PKG build actually means. A PKG build is a bash script. Reading it really requires knowing bash, understanding make-pkey, recognizing legitimate versus suspicious patterns, knowing whether a checksum should be present, whether a curl invocation is part of a normal build or an exfiltration, whether a git clone points to the official upstream or to a clone under attacker control. The Chaos Rat package was caught because someone after installation noticed the binary in the temp directory, not because someone read the PKG build in time. The community defense worked after the infections, not before. And then there are the structural numbers. Of 111,000 UR packages, a significant share is orphaned, without a maintainer. Already back in 2011, the official mailing list reported over 6,700 orphaned packages, with more than 2,400 also flagged out of date, some dating back to 2007. That backlog has never been cleaned up. It has only grown. Every one of those packages is a potential entry point, a piece of code waiting for someone to adopt it and inject something. exactly like the Acarid case. But security is only half the problem. The other half is time. Every time you update with an AOR helper like Yay or Paru, you are compiling source code on your machine. Brave browser, Electron-based applications, proprietary toolchains, libraries with dozens of dependencies can require 5, 10, 20 minutes of compilation each. Multiply by all the AOR packages a typical user has installed. Multiply again by the rolling release update frequency. The result, on real Arch systems, is hours per week spent watching compilation logs scroll. And there is a cascade effect that the Arch wiki itself admits. The AUR is unsupported. Any packages you install are your responsibility to update, not Pacman's. If packages in the official repositories are updated, you will need to rebuild any OR packages that depend on those libraries. Translation: every time the official ecosystem moves, you may have to recompile parts of your system manually. With OR helpers, this is partially automated, but the time cost remains real, and so does the risk of broken builds at the worst possible moment. The result is this. The average Arch user with significant OR usage spends a substantial portion of their computer time managing updates, resolving dependency conflicts, fixing broken PKG builds, hunting patches on the forum. The system, instead of being a tool, becomes a hobby. It becomes the project itself. And here comes the cruelest paradox. Arch promises control, but in reality it hands the user a huge maintenance burden disguised as freedom. Control and maintenance are not the same thing. A Formula One driver has control of the car. He doesn't rebuild it every morning before the race. The deeper point is this. OR is not freedom. OR is a delegation of responsibility from a maintainer team to you. Every PKG build you install is a contract you sign with a stranger, and the small print says, if something goes wrong, you should have read it. Now the question becomes inevitable. If Arch has betrayed its own philosophy, does a distro exist that actually respects that philosophy, using the same technical model? Yes, it is called Artix Linux. Artix is a fork of Arch that eliminates systemd and offers 4 alternatives: OpenRC, Runit, S6, Dynit. It uses the same Arch repositories, the same package management with Pacman, the same rolling release, the same documentation. Everything that makes Arch Arch is present, but without the monolithic blob. And here something interesting happens. On Artix, the concept of service goes back to being the original Unix one. A script, a directory, a supervisor. Runit, for example, manages every service as a directory inside EC/SV, with a run script defining exactly what gets executed. No unit files with proprietary syntax, no implicit dependencies, no journal forcing you to learn a new syntax just to read logs. Logs are text files. Services are supervised processes. That's it. This is Unix. This is the principle that Arch declares to follow. Artix does not have the same visibility as Arch. It does not have the viral marketing of I use Arch, by the way. It does not appear on memes. But technically, it is more faithful to the original philosophy than Arch itself. The community is smaller, documentation more limited, but the principle is respected. The message here is uncomfortable. If you love Arch for what it declares to be, you should use Artix. If you use Arch because you like that someone else has already solved the problems for you through systemd, then you are not using Arch for the reasons you claim. But there is another distro, not derived from Arch, that deserves to be named in this conversation. Void Linux. Void is not a fork of anyone. It is an independent project, born in 2008 with its own package manager, XBPS, rolling release, precompiled binaries, and as init system Runit. Not 4 options, 1, chosen with intention. Why is Void superior to Arch and even to Artix on several levels? First, XBPS is technically more advanced than Pacman. It handles atomic transactions, rollback in case of failure, and is written in a more modern way. Second, Void has a template system for packages, XBPS src, that allows you to compile packages from scratch in an isolated CRUD environment. No OR, no risk of malicious scripts on the real system, no surprises. If you want a package not present in the official repositories, you write a template, build it, and if it works, you can even propose it for official inclusion. The process is clean, controlled, documented. Third, Void offers 2 kernels, glibc and muzzle. Those who want a lighter and potentially safer system can choose muzzle. Arch does not offer this choice in its official repositories. Fourth, Runit on Void is implemented natively, not as an alternative, but as a foundation. Every service is a directory in etc/sv, activated through a symlink in /var/service. Total control, no useless abstraction. The result is a distro that does what Arch promises, better than Arch does. Minimal by default, transparent, rolling but stable, without the weight of systemd, without the jungle of AUR. The community is small, the documentation less extensive, but the technical quality is superior. I have been using Void Linux as a daily driver for a long time, and I can say with good reason, the time I used to spend managing Arch, now I spend using the computer. The difference is clear. The last chapter of this story is perhaps the most ironic. CachyOS is an Arch-based distro, created in 2021, that in recent years has been growing exponentially. According to DistroWatch data, CachyOS has entered the top rankings, surpassing Arch itself at several moments. What does CachyOS offer that Arch does not? Kernel optimized with performance patches, packages compiled with specific flags for modern architectures, Calamares graphical installer, preset configuration for gaming, proprietary drivers already configured. In practice, CachyOS takes Arch and solves everything a new user would face. But this is the paradox. If Arch were really the distro for advanced users who want total control, why is a derivative that automates everything becoming more popular than its parent? The answer is simple. Most Arch users actually don't really want to configure everything from scratch. They want the Arch logo on NeoFetch, the credibility of the community, the complete wiki, but they also want a system that works without spending Saturday afternoon configuring Pipewire. CachyOS offers this, and it offers it better. The result is a silent diaspora. Users who used to install Arch manually today move to CachyOS, to EndeavourOS, to Manjaro, to Garuda. Original Arch becomes more and more a niche option, surrounded by derivatives that have understood what the user really wants. And every derivative adds a layer, a configuration, a tool that moves further away from the original philosophy. Arch is dissolving into its own derivatives. Those seeking real simplicity go to Artix or Void. Those seeking convenience go to CachyOS. Arch remains as an idea, as a label, but its original user base has fragmented. So what remains of Arch Linux in 2026? Arch remains a technically valid distro with one of the best wikis in the Linux world, with a large community, with a rolling distribution model that works. But it is no longer the distro it declares to be. It is no longer the Unix purity it promised. It is no longer the philosophical choice it seemed to be 15 years ago. It has become a compromise between the original philosophy and the practical needs of the modern Linux ecosystem, dominated by systemd, by Flatpak, by Wayland, by changes that Arch accepted because it could not afford to reject them without losing users. And that's fine, if you accept it. The problem arises when Arch keeps presenting itself as the distro of simplicity and control, while by now it is just another rolling distro with a few more tools and a few fewer philosophical claims. If you are really interested in philosophy, look at Void. Look at Artix. Look at Gen 2 if you feel like pushing further. If you are interested in convenience, look at CachyOS. But don't tell yourself that using Arch today means being a purist, a technician, a guardian of tradition. That tradition Arch put aside long ago. The point is not that Arch has become a bad distro. The point is that it has stopped being coherent with what it says it is. And recognizing this, as a community, is the first step to consciously choosing what we really want from our operating system. See you in the next video. May Linux be with you.